We're 2 sleeps away from the NFC Championship game. The Rams are 1 win away from the Super Bowl and 2 wins away from football immortality. I'm going to tell you why the Rams are going to beat the Seahawks on Sunday. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramily, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Now the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor. Lots of new viewers, lots of new listeners lately. So let's get to 22,000 subscribers by kickoff on Sunday. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and if you want to support every single episode, drop a like and drop a comment. What is your prediction for the NFC Championship game? I'm going to give the winner who says the right score a shout out on the show, or whoever gets closest. So definitely drop your predictions down below. Podcast listeners, write us a review, or we'll read it on the show. My name is Doug McCain. Friends call me D-Mac. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. I've covered LA sports for over a decade. 24/7 Sports, Bleacher Report, SI, Dodgers Nation, the LA Sports Report. I also do NFL radio for Westwood One. Today I'm flying solo. The People Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, will be joining us on Monday. But on today's episode, we've got the path to victory on Sunday. 5 keys to a Rams victory. If they do all these things, they will be headed to the Super Bowl LX in San Francisco, SoFi North, as we're going to change the name of it. But first, today's episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Ramily, the time is almost here. Couple sleeps away. The biggest game of the year, not just in the NFC. I think who wins on Sunday wins the Super Bowl. That is how important in the magnitude of this matchup. But before we get into the keys, there is an injury the Rams have been dealing with this week, and that is to Byron Young, who's been dealing with the knee injury. He's listed as questionable, but the full expectation is that BY is going to be playing on Sunday against the Seahawks. And he's been the Rams' best edge rusher this season. He leads the team with 12 sacks. He has 4.5 more sacks than Jared Verse this season. So they need him in a game where you have to create pressure against Sam Darnold. In a game where you have solid depth with Josiah Stewart and Deshaun Johnson, but the big question is, what will the snap count be of Byron Young? Because this knee injury has been nagging him. He did have limited snaps against the Bears in the divisional round, but this is one game to get to the game. So I fully expect him to be a full go, and he's someone that is going to be very impactful in this game as long as he's healthy. But now let's get to some of the key matchups. Then we're going to get to the keys. So first thing matchup-wise, we got to talk about the Rams getting pressure on Sam Darnold. And you can look at this as a couple different ways. You can look at this as Chris Shula versus Sam Darnold. You can look at this as Jared Verse versus Sam Darnold. Byron Young versus Sam Darnold. But the first biggest key to getting a win on Sunday is getting to Sam Darnold. You want to have Halloween in January because you want him to be seeing ghosts. That is the goal. Can you get consistent pressure on Sam Darnold? Because if you're able to, things are going to go your way defensively. The Rams have done a great job getting pressure against Darnold this season. They've held him to 2 touchdowns. They forced 6 interceptions in their 2 matchups. And in those 2 matchups, the Rams have generated 14 plus pressures in both of those matchups. They had 18 pressures in week 16. That was the most pressures that Sam Darnold has experienced for the entire season. We know what they want to do. They want to run the football with Kenneth Walker, and they want to take their shots and have their explosive plays when they're available. Can they get multiple explosive plays with Jackson Smith and Jigba? Can you get 4 or 5 big 20 to 40 to 50-yard completions if you are Sam Darnold? If you're the Rams, can you prevent that? Because it's not just getting pressure on Sam Darnold, it's getting pressure up the middle. When you see those interceptions that the Rams have caused this season, those interceptions they have forced, they've gotten pressure through the middle, in the interior part of that defense. The first interception, you had interior pressure by Tyler Davis. The second one, it was interior pressure on a stunt by Byron Young. The fourth interception, it was an interior blitz with Poona Ford and Cam Kinchins. And then the sixth interception was pressure coming off the edge from Jared Verse. So it's not just pressure, it's pressure up the middle. And this season, Sam Darnold is 28th in the National Football League against pressure. He has an EPA per dropback at negative 0.58. In the weeks 11 through the 16th, he's 11 for 22 with 3 interceptions, and the EPA per dropback is negative 0.97 against pressure. So that tells you that he's mistake prone if you can get to him. But here's the interesting wrinkle in the game is that I know this. You probably know this. The Rams know this. Chris Sheila knows this. Sean McVay knows this. But the Seahawks also know this because since week 11, the Seahawks have done a better job in not putting in those opportunities because they understand that from weeks 1 through 11, the big-time throw rate was higher. The turnover-worthy play rate was at 3.7%. But week 12 and on, you've seen the big-time throw rate go down, the turnover-worthy rate. You've seen some of these numbers that suggest that, hey, they are preventing him from making those throws in those situations. So that's kind of the biggest key right there because when he gets sacked, he starts to really unravel. That's been really the story of his career. And things can really fall off the tracks fast when Sam Darnold is starting to get pressure, when he's taking sacks, when he's having turnovers, throwing interceptions. And the numbers bear that out. On plays after he gets sacked, he's averaging 1.1 air yards per attempt. So basically what you're saying is that when you get pressure on him, the Seahawks are saying, you know what? All right, let's pull the plug. We'll live to see the next series. We're going to get conservative. So that's why it's so incredibly important to have a repeat performance from what we saw in the first couple of games this season. Hey, ideally, the perfect scenario would be to replicate the performance that we saw last season when the Rams faced Sam Darnold when he was the quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings and they caused 9 sacks. And that's another thing, too. It's not just the pressure. It's getting to him and bringing him down. So that is the number one thing. If the Rams can be disruptive and they can be game wreckers against Darnold, they're going to put themselves in a really, really, really good spot defensively because Zach Charbonnet, he's out for this game. He had season-ending knee surgery. He was their second running back. Heading into this one, they only had one running back on the 53-man roster with Kenneth Walker III. And Kenneth Walker, he's a guy that can break tackles. We've seen that from him throughout his career. We saw the 55-yard run he had against the Rams in their Week 16 loss, so that's going to be pivotal too. But make them make mistakes because the last thing you want is Sam Darnold to have time and finding Jackson Smith and Jigba and having this run game really start to feast because the run game has improved in the last couple of weeks for the Seahawks. But that's the recipe. The Rams defense, they have to come out with their hair on fire. And the last game, it was a really, really good day for the Rams defense and Chris Sheila, especially in the secondary with Kobe Turner having 2 interceptions and Cam Curl saving the season with an interception. But I think this game is all about the Rams defensive line. They can put their stamp on this season by coming out with their hairs on fire and just going after Sam Darnold. Like I said, I want to see Halloween in January. Make Sam Darnold see ghosts, and the Rams will go to the Super Bowl. That is how pivotal it is to be at your best along that line. So can we get a legacy game from Jared Verse? Can we see the conductor conducting? Because the great thing about this Rams team is they're towards the bottom when it comes to blitz rate. And when you can get pressure without blitzing, it allows you to have guys in coverage to kind of mitigate the talent issues that they have at times, or at least the perceived talent issues that they have sometimes in the secondary. So both these teams do a great job. Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy, they do a lot when it comes to being able to get to the quarterback without setting pressure. The Rams are similar in that sense. A lot of similarities between these teams, and that's definitely one of them. But get to Sam Darnold, and you get to the Super Bowl. But coming up next, we've got some more specific matchups they're going to have to look for on Sunday, and the next 4 keys to a Rams win. And I'm throwing out my prediction. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. And this year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employment forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so hit the subscribe button. Also, the Ramley. Now is the time to join the Everyday Listeners Club. If you want to take your Rams fandom to the next level, join that Everyday Listeners Club. It's an exclusive community of fans who want to be as close to the action as possible. You get ad-free audio, exclusive content, exclusive merch. Also, there's a Discord server that's members only, where it's Rams fans talking ball 24/7, 365. I'm chiming in there as well. So join today. Go to lockedonrams.supercast.com. All right, let's pick up on the keys to a win. Feels like time's gone slow. Time goes by so fast. The years are flying by. Everyone says that, right? Has anyone that said that ever had to wait for their team to play in the NFC Championship game to get one more win to get to the Super Bowl? Because it feels like the minutes are hours and the hours are days and the days are weeks. Can we get to kickoff? Because I just can't wait, can't stop thinking about it, and I can't stop thinking about the keys to a victory. So let's get back into those keys. So we'll get to that vaunted number 1 ranked Seahawks defense in a second, but let's stick with the Seahawks offense right now and what the Rams need to do to neutralize it and slow it down. So if you can get to Sam Darnold, you feel like you can have success stopping the pass, but the next question is, can you stop the run? Can you limit Kenneth Walker from explosive plays, from getting big chunks? They're going to be out Zach Charbonnet, so that's definitely a big blow for that offense. Of course, Zach Charbonnet is the guy who just touched on the football and it led to the 2-point conversion. We know what happened in Week 16, but he will not be playing in this one. And like I said in the first segment, this is a Seahawks run game that has improved tremendously throughout the year. From weeks 1 through 11, they're one of the worst rushing units in the NFL. They're ranked 29th in rushing success rate. They were 29th in yards per carry. And since then, they're not elite, but they've improved tremendously. They rank 23rd in rushing success rate since, but they rank 6th in yards per carry. Also, it's the explosive runs that have had a big leap. Their explosive run rate went from 4.6 to 8.6%. That leads the National Football League. So we've seen the Rams defense have a success rate of 47.7% in weeks 1 through 11. That was top 10 in the NFL, and they did a great job in limiting big runs. We didn't see those big explosives from Saquon Barkley and Jonathan Taylor, although there was a penalty in that one that impacted it by A.D. Mitchell, but there was just a lot of success with this Rams defense stopping the run. Guys like Poona Ford, better tackling, Nate Landman, Omar Spades. But since weeks 1 through 11, the Rams' success against the run, it is identical at 47.7%, but it's the explosive run rate that has jumped at 5.5%. So it's gone from 1.5% to 5.5%. That's the 6th highest in the National Football League in that stretch. So if you're the Rams, you can't let what happened last season against the Eagles in the divisional round with Saquon Barkley, with Jalen Hurts, you can't let that repeat itself. You have to find a way to limit Kenneth Walker. And Kenneth Walker, in week 11, he had 16 carries for 67 yards. And then we saw what happened in week 16, where he had that big, long run. And for this Rams defense, really, it comes down to tackling in space and not letting Kenneth Walker get these big, massive chunks. Because we saw Bijan Robinson did. We saw how that just absolutely steamrolled the Rams. You can't have it. We saw Kenneth Walker's run led to that comeback in a lot of different ways. So that's going to be the biggest key in this one as far as the run game is not him getting the 4 or 5 yard chunks. It's can you kind of bend but don't break? Yes, they're going to get some on the ground, but can you limit the big home runs, the explosives? That is what is going to turn this game upside down and what's going to put your defense in a bad spot. But I like the Rams' chances of being better against the run just because you've got Poona Ford getting healthier. You've got Quentin Lake back. Quentin Lake played just 2 quarters against the Seattle Seahawks this season. He only played in just over 38% of the snaps in week 11. He left with an injury. So he's back. That is going to help them when they're in the early downs, when they're in nickel, and that's going to be a big game within the game in this one is, does Quentin Lake follow up and look like the Quentin Lake we saw against the Bears, or does he look like the one we saw against the Panthers? I think that with a couple games under his belt, we're going to see the better version of Quentin Lake that's going to be very valuable in stopping the run. Because Kenneth Walker, not just because I've watched a lot of film on him and done a lot of prep for this game, but I have him as a fantasy running back. And this is a guy that he will have a wow run. He'll have a run well. He'll cut back and get creative and make a run that looked like it was going to be a 2-yard loss into an 8-yard gain. But he's also a guy that can get stuffed a lot. He's a guy that doesn't just hit that hole in between the tackles and just take what the defense is giving to him. That's why he's 45th out of 49 running backs when it comes to success rate. But where he has his strength is that explosive run rate at 8.1%. That is second in the National Football League. Also, he can miss tackles, a .28 forced missed tackle per attempt rate. I mean, that's definitely really strong. He's not a guy that breaks a ton of tackles, but he can miss tackles. So the Rams, they need to get to him, wrap up, get him to the turf. And now that he's playing basically by himself because you don't have their second running back, and we'll see who they elevate, that's going to be an advantage for the Rams. It really is. Is they can have that advantage knowing that you don't have a two-headed monster. The Rams have a two-headed monster in Kyren Williams and Blake Corum. That's the next big key to this one. Are we going to be screaming at our television about running the football? The third big key of this game for the Rams is run the football with consistency. don't go away from the run if it's working. And we saw back in week 16, the Rams were good on the ground against the Seahawks. They had a 53.8% rushing success rate. That is the worst rushing success rate that the Seahawks had allowed all season. And then on top of that, you have Kevin Dotson back, and he is going to be hopefully getting closer and closer to 100%. But since that week 16, the Rams, they haven't had a ton of success running out of 13 personnel. Last week, you saw them go with 11 personnel at an almost 90% clip as they were heading into the fourth quarter. So I think another element to this game is how much will Sean McVay trust the 13 personnel? Would you have more tight ends in the game, or will you get pass happy again? Because that has been part of the Rams' identity this season, is going with a 3 tight end look, 1 receiver, 1 running back. Are we going to see that in this one? Are we going to see a 12 personnel group where you got run RB, 2 tight ends, and 2 wide receivers? I mean, that's going to be a decision that is a part of the game plan heading into this one, is how much confidence they have that not only they can run the football, but run the football out of that heavy package like they've had success doing. Because the Seahawks pass defense, when you look at how good they are against empty sets, it's a little different. And the way the Rams can kind of spread them out, that's going to be another area where you kind of look at. Can you achieve that and put Matthew Stafford in a position where they know they can go to the run when they need it, but can they pass to set up the run or run to set up the pass? That's going to be, I think, what I want to see. Pass to set up the run. You don't always have to set up the run to set up the pass. And we've seen Stafford so efficient early on. Even last week when he struggled for large portions of that game, he was extremely efficient early on. So I want to see Puka Nacua have another legacy game like he did against the Seahawks in Week 16. That was without Davante Adams. But this team is at its best when there's balance. And we saw Blake Corum and Kyren Williams for long stretches really carry this offense, keep that Seattle offense off the field, control the clock, control the game, and allow that run game to get in a rhythm. Because I don't think you need Stafford to go out there and make 40 throws to win. I mean, you really don't. I mean, you switch to an offensive line that's capable of doing just that, and you feel like this is a game that they could potentially shine. As far as a specific player-to-player matchup is the Rams guards versus the Seahawks defensive tackles, because you've got Byron Murphy, you've got Leonard Williams, all-pro Leonard Williams from USC, and you got Steve Avila and Kevin Dotson. And in Week 16, Byron Murphy had 6 pressures, and Leonard Williams had 5. They had a ton of success against their guards. So will Kevin Dotson step up? Will Steve Avila step up? That is a very tough matchup. Those are 2 very talented interior rushers, and it's twofold. Do you protect Matthew Stafford to give him time to carve, time to cook, and find Davante and Puka and the tight ends and make plays, or is he going to be running around? Is the run game going to have negative plays? So that really is kind of the 2-on-2 right there. It's Dotson and Avila versus Murphy and Leonard Williams. So that's a big specific matchup in that one. And the Rams, they understand too that, look, Dotson, he's been one of the best guards in the NFL, and they know what they have in him. But Matthew Stafford, as great an arm as he does have, he's not a mobile quarterback by any means, right? 1 rushing yard this season. So interior pressure leads to sacks a lot of the times when it's against Matthew Stafford. Can he avoid those by the play of those guards? And I think that this game could be won or lost in the trenches, and specifically with that 2-on-2 right there. And then kind of going back to the other side, Nate Landman versus Kenneth Walker III. We talked about how good he can be, and Nate Landman, he has had some struggles tackling in space. and with angles for the last couple of weeks. He needs to have his best game of the season because we talked about the explosiveness and how elusive Kenneth Walker can be, and they're going to lean on their run game. They're going to do that because they do not want the game to be determined by the arm of Sam Darnold. So they're going to lean on that run game, and it's going to be very crucial for him to do just that. Nate Landman's got to get to tackles. You got to wrap up. We need to see some peanut punches in there too. That'd be ideal. And then also you got to talk about Jackson Smith and Jigba. And does Kobe Durant build on the momentum of last week? Because Jackson Smith and Jigba, he was shut down for the vast majority of the game in Week 16, but then he took over in the second half. He came alive in overtime, and he caught the game winner with 3 minutes left. And Kobe Durant, he's coming off his best game of the year, possibly the best game of his career, with 2 picks against the Bears, and he's going to be matched up. And you're going to see Durant's going to get help from safeties. They're going to have help over the top. Darius Williams is going to be one of the other cornerbacks that's going to be in there to match up with Jackson Smith and Jigba. But you don't make him a superstar, right? He's a star, but I think one of the keys, make sure Jackson Smith and Jigba isn't a household name. He might already be, but a lot of times when it's a player's first time being a Pro Bowl or an All-Pro, it takes a massive game in the playoffs to take them from a star that everyone that is a football junkie knows about to a household name. Let's make sure that Jackson Smith and Jigba doesn't become a household name on Sunday. But coming up, more predictions, more keys. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. And a key, by the way, that is the number one key. The number one key. And it's not as technical as the rest. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. NFL season is in full swing, and there's nothing like being at the game. The crowd noise, the energy, and cheering alongside other fans. Watching at home is great, but being in the stadium hits different. The frustrating part has always been getting tickets, waiting in queues, dealing with logins, and watching prices change at the checkout. And that's why the Gametime app gives you the advantage back to fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing NFL tickets and experiences in just a few taps. I pulled up the Gametime app to check out upcoming NFL games. The Rams, Seahawks up in Seattle. Know a lot of Rams fans that are going up there. And I found great ticket options almost instantly. The app is incredibly intuitive. Browsing, comparing, and buying tickets took just minutes. One of my favorite features is being able to see the view from my seats before buying, so there's no surprise. I actually bought some World Series tickets for my mom and my wife, and that was a great experience for them. So, yeah, I bought at Gametime. It was awesome because you get to see where you're buying, and you don't get those other fees when you're checking out. The price is what you pay. Also, the zone deals stood out, too. You pick the section, Gametime picks the seat, and you save even more. Seeing NFL tickets available for around $100 made it easy to plan a game day trip. I really like that fees are included up front, so the price you see is exactly what you pay. Knowing tickets are backed by the Gametime guarantee gives you a real peace of mind. So take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today and get back to being there live. FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts, and you can apply them to bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boosts let you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterbacks, play, or coaching. The boost gives you more juice on the bets you already like instead of forcing you to bet on something new. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. You make your picks, then apply your profit boost to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Okay, so we're going to do some more keys. Tomorrow I'm going to drop a special Saturday episode. Could have a guest. We'll talk about that. But I'm going to throw my prediction. I'm going to give you the number one key before that. The number one key, all gas, no brakes, and it's time to cross Seattle off of the revenge tour list. We've got our hit list. We know who those teams are. Even Kobe Durant said the Bears beat them last year, so they were on the hit list too. The revenge tour continues. And this is a Seattle Seahawks team that earned the number one seed and the bye. They are the favorite in this game. FanDuel has this one very tight, very close, and they are the home team. You're going to have the 12s. Cringe. You're going to have the 12s making noise, getting loud. And it is a game that the Rams are underdogs. They're 2.5 point underdogs, according to FanDuel. And this is a Seahawks team that it took a incredible punt by Ethan Evans in Week 11 to beat them. It also took a incredible collapse by the Rams to lose to them. So the number one key is all gas, no brakes, because Sam Darnold is a good quarterback in the fourth quarter. This is a Seahawks team that believes until the very end that they can win a football game. Sam Darnold, this season, quarters 1 through 3, negative 0.48 EPA per play. Fourth quarter, 0.06. So that number tells you that he's a better fourth quarter player than quarters 1 through 3. So you don't want to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory once again. For this game, win the turnover battle. No costly turnovers. Protect Matthew Stafford. Run the football. Pressure on the interior. Wrap up. Stop the run game. All the things that you don't have to be a football genius to understand, but you can start at a basic level and you can dive into each of those and make them as complex as you want. But this Rams team is a special team. It's a special group of guys with special coaches. And I would hate to have to talk about Week 16 and that collapse loss, where the Rams in their franchise's history had been 323-1 in games where they had a 15-point or more lead in the fourth quarter. They're now 323-2 after losing to the Seahawks in that one, in a game that cost them a bye and the number one seed in the NFC. Now, if they win on Sunday, I'm going to look back and say, hey, maybe that was a good thing. It was a good thing that they had to face adversity in Carolina and Chicago. It was a good thing that they had to work some things out and get guys back like Quinn Lake and Kevin Dotson. Maybe those situations helped them in the long run versus having that time off. And you never know if you're going to maybe be rusty and not have a rhythm. I'm going to look at all those things. But what I would love most is to never have to bring up or talk about that Week 16 collapse ever again. Because if they win, we'll never mention it. It'll be like Voldemort and Harry Potter. You don't say its name. We'll never say its name ever again. We'll never talk about it. We will never discuss it again. But if they lose, we're going to say, man, that game should have been at SoFi Stadium. If they lose, we're going to say, this is a Rams team that had an MVP year from Matthew Stafford. Had Puka Nacua emerge as a superstar wide receiver. Had Devontae Adams with still some gas left in his Pro Bowl All-Pro tank. Had a defense with stars emerging. Still had Chris Shula as their defensive coordinator. He's likely going to go to Pittsburgh. Every year is different. And you know it, I know it. This is a Super Bowl winning Rams team. That's the caliber that they're at. Especially when we look at the AFC right now. Broncos, Patriots, Seahawks, Rams. A Super Bowl is right there, a third Super Bowl for this franchise. It would elevate them to another stratosphere. And to win that Super Bowl in San Francisco, that would be the most satisfying of them all. So I've got the Rams winning this one. I got the Rams winning 28-24. I've got the Rams winning 28-24. All these games have been nail biters. They've been close. There is a world, I think, if the Rams offense and Matthew Stafford plays 4 quarters of MVP football and the defense does what it can do, there's a world where maybe the Rams could win by more. But I just think that this Rams team has come too far to come this far. They realize that their window, this might be it. Like let's call it what it is. This might be it. You got Cooper Kupp playing for the Seahawks. Has his hair like he's like a grunge band in the 90s. Calling him Coop Cobain, right? This is a game where the Rams know if they win on Sunday, they have a really good chance to win it all. And think about how long this franchise went without a Super Bowl. Think about the drought of the playoffs. Think about teams that never get to raise that Lombardi trophy. When you are this close, you've got to finish the job. This could be the last dance with Matthew Stafford. It really could. We don't know what's going to happen next year. I think he's going to be back, but we don't know if the magic is going to be there with the 2026 Rams like it is in 2025. So, Ramley, let's go up to Seattle, beat the the Seahawks, and head to the Super Bowl. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.